Have you ever felt like you're just going through the motions, living the same day over and over? For Ethan, a Boston College student drowning in textbooks and instant ramen, that feeling was about to become terrifyingly real. His life was a predictable loop of lectures, late-night study sessions, and the quiet hum of his old, rented house. But one rainy Tuesday, everything changed. It started with a nose, a faint, rhythmic thumping, almost like a heartbeat, coming from inside his bedroom closet. He'd lived in this house for nearly a year and had never noticed it before. Curiosity getting the better of him, Ethan pushed aside his clothes and ran his hands along the back wall. The wallpaper was old, peeling at the edges, but behind it, his fingers brushed against something cold and metallic, a handle. With a surge of adrenaline, he pulled. The section of wall didn't just open. It swung inward with a groan of ancient hinges, revealing not a hidden space, but a dark, narrow passage. A strange, musty smell, like old paper and damp earth, wafted out. The air inside felt colder, heavier. Tearing into the gloom, Ethan could make out a faint light at the far end. His heart pounded against his ribs. Every horror movie he'd ever seen screamed at him to close the door and forget he ever saw it. But the pull of the unknown was too strong. He grabbed the flashlight from his nightstand, took a deep breath, and stepped through the doorway. The passage was short, maybe 10 feet long. The walls were rough-hewn stone, slick with moisture. At the end was another door, almost identical to the one in his closet. He hesitated for a moment, then pushed it open. And that's when his world tilted on its axis. He was standing in his own living room. Everything was exactly as he'd left it that morning. His half-finished coffee was on the table, his laptop was open to the same research paper, and the morning news was still playing softly on the TV. But something was wrong. Through the window, the sky wasn't dark and rainy like it was just moments ago. It was bright, with the soft, gray light of early morning. He checked his phone. The time was 7:15 a.m., but the date was Monday. Yesterday, he had somehow walked through his closet and into yesterday morning. His mind reeled, trying to process the impossibility of it. Was he dreaming? Had he finally cracked from the stress of midterms? He crept through the house, a ghost in his own timeline. He saw his own breakfast dishes in the sink, untouched. He saw the note he'd left for himself on the fridge, reminding him about a library book due that afternoon. It was all real. Then, he heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Panicked, he ducked behind the living room couch, his breath catching in his throat. And there he was, himself. Yesterday's Ethan. He watched, frozen, as his past self went through the familiar morning routine. He saw him grab the coffee, sigh at the laptop screen, and run a hand through his messy hair. It was like watching a home movie, but he was in it. Live. A profound sense of dread washed over him. This wasn't a dream, this was real, and it was dangerous. What would happen if he interacted with himself? Would the universe implode? Would he cease to exist? He spent the entire day hiding, a silent observer of his own life. He watched himself leave for class, come home, and order the same pizza for dinner. He followed his own shadow from room to room, feeling an unbearable sense of loneliness and fear. He was a prisoner in his own past. He knew he had to get back to his own time, back to Tuesday. As night fell in the yesterday house, he watched his past self head up to bed. This was his chance. He waited until the house was completely silent, then crept back to the living room. He had to retrace his steps. He slipped back through the hidden door, into the cold, damp passage. But as he reached for the handle to his closet, a sound from behind made him freeze. A loud, splintering crack. He turned back slowly, his flashlight beam trembling. A fissure, glowing with a warm, inviting light, was spreading across the stone wall of the passage. The crack widened, revealing a familiar scene on the other side. It was his bedroom, his Tuesday bedroom. He could see his desk, his unmade bed, everything exactly as it should be. And standing there, in the middle of the room, was a silhouette. His silhouette. So now there were three of them. There was yesterday Ethan, asleep upstairs. There was him, the today Ethan, trapped in the passage. And through the crack in reality, there was another him, a figure from a future he hadn't lived yet. He was caught between two timelines, a living paradox. The two silhouettes in the passage, him and his future self, faced each other across the glowing rift. He felt a strange connection to the figure, A sense of recognition and terror. He was looking at himself, but not himself. It was a version of him that had already lived through this nightmare. What did he know? What had he seen? As these questions raced through his mind, the unthinkable happened. The silhouette of yesterday's Ethan, who should have been sound asleep in bed, suddenly appeared at the passage entrance behind him. His heart stopped. How did he know? How did he find the door? Yesterday's Ethan wasn't looking at him. His eyes were fixed on the glowing crack in the wall, and the third figure standing within it. The air grew thick, electric with an impossible tension. 3 versions of the same person, from 3 consecutive days, were now standing in the same impossible space. And then, just when Ethan thought things couldn't get any stranger, the Ethan from yesterday, the one he had been watching all day, slowly turned his head. His eyes, wide with a mixture of confusion and dawning horror, locked directly onto his. It was a look that shattered every law of physics and sanity. He wasn't just seeing a stranger. He was seeing himself, a day older, standing where no one should be. In that moment of shared recognition, a silent, terrifying question passed between them. What have you done? The silence in the passage was absolute, a void waiting to be filled by the scream that was building in Ethan's throat. What happens now? What happens when your past and future collide right in front of you? I guess we'll have to find out. Thanks for watching. Wait. What? Another me. And you single quotes read ... from the future. Hold on, my head's spinning. What is going on? This glowing thing. You. Hint ... this can't be real. Can someone please explain what's happening to me? The realization hits all 3 of them like a physical blow. We're not supposed to be here, not together. The corridor around us begins to flicker, shimmering like a heat haze. But instead of heat, I see other places, other times. A timeline where the walls are slick with something dark, another where screams echo from just beyond the veil. Yesterday me is shaking his head, his face pale with terror. I try to shout, to warn him, but the words are stolen from my lungs. Future me just stands there, his shadow stretching impossibly long as the floor beneath us suddenly gives way.